Hello and welcome. Today, we're doing a book talk on a work that's become a bit of an underground classic for strategists and investors alike. Seven Powers by Hamilton Helmer. You know, if you've ever looked at a truly dominant company and just wondered, how on earth do they stay on top for so long? Well, you're about to find out the secret. And we're going to start with a pretty intense quote from Reed Hastings of Netflix. Look, when the CEO of the company that totally changed entertainment says this, you tend to pay attention. It really sets the stakes for what we're about to unpack, a framework that can be the difference between, well, life and death for a business. Because really, this book tackles a massive mystery. We're talking about the kind of billion-dollar question that absolutely keeps founders and investors up at night. And that question is, why do some companies build these incredible, almost untouchable fortresses around their business? You know who I'm talking about: Apple, Netflix, Pixar. They don't just have a good year. They build advantages that last for decades. But at the same time, so many other companies with great products and really smart people, they just fade away. So what's the secret sauce? Well, according to the author, Hamilton Helmer, the answer isn't what you might think. It's not as simple as having the best product or just outworking everyone. I mean, those things are important, for sure, but they aren't enough on their own. Helmer, who's a strategy advisor that spent decades working on this puzzle, he found that real, lasting success comes from something much deeper, something he calls power. So, what exactly is power? It's not power in the way we usually think about it, like political power. Helmer gives it a very specific, very strategic business meaning. Okay, so here's the formal definition: the set of conditions creating the potential for persistent differential returns. Yeah, I know, it's a mouthful, but let's just break that down. It simply means having an advantage that lets you be more profitable than your rivals year after year, in a way that competition just can't seem to wear down. It's a durable, protected edge. And achieving this becomes the ultimate goal, what Helmer calls the mantra. The whole game is about finding a route to real, continuous power in a market that's big enough to matter. That's the North Star for any business strategy. So, how do you actually get it? Well, this is the real heart of the book. What Helmer discovered is that this big idea, power, isn't just one single thing. It actually comes in 7 distinct flavors. And here they are. These are the 7 different strategies a business can use to build that lasting advantage: scale economies, network economies, counter-positioning, switching costs, branding, a cornered resource, and finally, process power. Each one is a totally unique way to defend your business from competitors. Now, for this book talk, we can't go deep on all 7, so we're going to zero in on 3 of the most interesting ones. This will give you a really good feel for how the whole framework operates in the real world. First up is scale economies. And really, there's no better example of this than Netflix, especially when you look at how they came to dominate streaming. When Netflix made that huge, risky bet on original content with shows like House of Cards, they completely changed the math of the entire industry. And here's the genius of it. For Netflix, the benefit is that the massive upfront cost of a big show gets spread across hundreds of millions of subscribers. That makes the cost per user incredibly small. But the real magic is the barrier this creates. A smaller competitor has to pay that same huge price tag for content, but with way fewer subscribers, their cost per user is through the roof. It makes trying to compete head-on just financially impossible. Okay, next up is one of my personal favorites because it's just so clever: counter-positioning. This is the ultimate David versus Goliath move, where a smaller company wins by playing a totally different game. The classic story here is Vanguard taking on the old-school world of investment management. So Vanguard's benefit was this superior new model: really cheap index funds that, on average, actually gave customers better returns. But the big question is, why didn't the giants like Fidelity just copy them? And this is the brilliant part. The barrier was something called collateral damage. If Fidelity launched their own cheap funds, it would steal customers from their own super profitable, expensive funds. They were trapped. They were damned if they did, and damned if they didn't. Our last example is a fun one: cornered resource. This is all about having special access to an asset that nobody else can get their hands on. And for this, we have to look at the just incredible, unprecedented success of Pixar. This quote from Pixar's own John Lasseter really gets to the core of their cornered resource. After his first big hit, Disney, of course, tried to poach him. But his refusal showed that Pixar's key asset, its creative team, what they called the Brain Trust, wasn't just a bunch of employees you could buy. It was a committed group with a special chemistry. So you can see the power playing out perfectly. The benefit? It was obvious, an unbelievable string of smash hit movies. The barrier is what Helmer calls fiat, which is just a fancy way of saying that the key resource, that unique creative magic of the Brain Trust, was simply not for sale at any price. Disney couldn't just build another one. They had it completely cornered. In the end, the only way Disney could get that magic was to buy the whole company, which, as we know, they eventually did. Okay, so we've looked at a few of these powers, but here's the next really critical idea in the book. It's not just about what power you build, it's about when. The opportunity to get each of these 7 powers shows up at different times in a company's life. Helmer calls this the power progression, and it's basically a strategic map for any leader. It shows you how your best moves change over time. Early on in the origination phase, your best bets are things like counter-positioning or a cornered resource. Then, as you hit that explosive growth in the takeoff phase, that's when you can build scale or network economies. And finally, when things mature and you reach stability, that's when you can cement your position with deep branding. The key insight is that timing is absolutely everything. The window to grab each power can be very short. You have to know what stage you're in. And that leads to a final question for you. Think about a company you really admire. It could be Apple or Amazon or maybe a local business you just love. Now that you have this new way of looking at things, can you figure out which of the 7 powers they're using? It's a really fascinating lens to view the business world through. So that's our look at 7 powers. It's a pretty dense book, but I really hope this talk gives you a powerful new tool for analyzing any business. For more explainers on game-changing ideas just like this one, make sure you subscribe. Thanks so much for joining.